Well, my name is Seth. I am in Desga. I go online as Ndesga, which is just like a little alias that I made when I was younger. I have been a generalist game designer, so I like to call myself, for a long time. I would say more than a decade. For good or for worse, it's been a rough ride, but um, I started my journey really just sort of making my own game. I had a dream game called Nitro, and I worked on that for about 7 years. It was a huge chunk of my life.
Nice.
It was sort of, after high school, my parents were like, "You've been talking about this game. It's either the game or university. Like, obviously, we want you to go to university, but you know." And I was like, "Well, I really want to pursue this," and I pursued it, and I learned a lot.
Nice.
And now here I am. I'm working at Nightdive, which is such an amazing opportunity. And I'm working on a game that is very cool and very wacky, and it's such a privilege to be working on this. I wasn't actually, uh, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but like I didn't know what game I was going to be working on when I was hired, right?
Right.
So it was a surprise, and I like that, and it was so cool. And yeah,
Nice.
it's awesome. Mm.
That's amazing. Can you tell me, like, dive in a little bit? Dive in. Come on. Can you give me a little more insight into what drew you to Night Dive? Yeah, just give me a little info on that.
Well, I initially heard of them. I think it was around the original System Shock remaster. I think I
Yeah.
heard of Night Dive. And I've been a fan of obviously the Doom and Quake and the classics. Um, and and also I had a few thoughts of like there were some old games that I wanted to be remade, and I was like, oh, who's doing that? Like who's remaking games? And yeah, one thing led to another. I was sort of connected through some of the couple of Kiwis that work for Night Dive who are just in
Yep.
the city near me. And yeah, and it was like, oh, we need a programmer who knows Vulkan. And that happens to be something that I obsess over. I love C, I love Vulkan. And yeah, and it was just a process that led up to my hiring, and it's been so amazing. It's been really
Cool.
cool to be with a team who's just like laser it's like the biggest laser focus towards just remastering just with the highest quality possible. It's so cool. Yeah.
That's really interesting. I love that. Did you go to school for that? Are you self-taught? What's sort of your training background?
Mm. Well, so I am self-taught, but I did grow up with a father who is a hardware engineer. So
Oh, cool.
it was kind of like though I was self-taught, he was kind of always looking over my shoulder. And
Nice.
whenever I'd make something, whenever I'd code something up, I'd show him, and he'd be like, "Cool, can I see the code?"
Yeah, yeah.
um, so so I don't have any I guess professional training. I didn't go to university for it,
Right.
but it has absolutely just been fueled by passion my
Cool.
entire life. So yeah.
That's cool, man. It sounds like I'm just kind of riffing on the surprise project when you were hired. And how do you
Mm,
approach that? Is it like because I'm not a coder. I don't know anything
mm.
about. I know what it is. I know how it works. I just can't do it. But are you approaching, when you were told, "Oh, this is killing time," how do you approach the project? Is it like a puzzle box that you kind of have to
Mm.
decipher? What is your sort of roadmap or your thinking, or where do you start?
That is a very good question. I think I don't know. I guess now that I think of it, maybe naturally I I was kind of open to like anything really.
Yeah.
I kind of assumed it was going to be something like that because they never mentioned any
Mhm.
particular project, which I guess I could have asked,
Right.
but I also didn't mind. I knew that they were working on some projects. I talked to the some of the devs before I got hired, but it was really like a. I think it was more that I see a studio like Night Dive as one of opportunities, and I also see the fact that they've just done such an amazing job, and I was like, I want to be part of that. It wasn't yeah, it wasn't particularly like I was jumping in on something,
Mhm.
something like, oh yeah, I was expecting something.
Cool.
But in saying that though, I really did enjoy yeah, just being able to take my time with the project because it was right at the start. And it was quite fun to just be like, yeah, this is killing time, and I've heard of it before. That I guess that's an important piece of information. I hadn't properly heard of killing time before I started working on it. And that was, I mean, I've seen pictures of it. There was that particular poster of the guy who's got like swords for hands or something like
Yes,
that.
yes, yes, yes.
Like I remember seeing that, and so when I saw it, I was like, oh, well, that's that game. Okay, that's pretty cool. Um, but then once I actually started to learn about what it is and the history, Burger Becky and like just everything leading up to it, I was like, wow, this is such a weird game, and I love it. And like I personally, because I grew up with a lot of indie games,
Mhm,
I my all my circles are basically just indie devs. Um, and it had that air of indiness to it, like really just quirky,
mhm.
wacky. Yeah,
That's
I
cool.
fell enamored by it. Yeah,
Cool.
it's
Yeah,
pretty cool.
it's a weird oddity of a game. It's
It
absurd.
is.
It has, like, this weird dark humor.
Mm.
Yeah, speaking with, like, um, Albert and Josh on the project, just, like, their takes on it, just yeah, everyone just thinks it's this really weird thing
Yeah.
that you guys are kind of making better because 'cause you're doing we spoke a lot about kind of the best of both worlds with the
Mm.
PC and 3DO sort of coming together.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that being said, what's your role on Killing Time? I know programmer, but
Mm.
that's quite a large
Yeah, it's pretty
that's a
general.
loaded term, right? So, yeah, what are you
Yeah.
doing? What does your day-to-day look like? Take me through a little bit of that.
Sweet. Yeah. Well, I guess these days, it's been primarily, I guess, rendering
Yeah,
programming.
okay.
Um, so, um, so when I jumped on, when you started the game, it was basically like a black screen. So, um, I was put on charge to like make everything actually be put onto the screen itself.
Gotcha. Okay.
So obviously we had the artist with their amazing job. I have to say, by the way, Albert is an amazing
Oh,
artist. It's
man.
it's
Yeah.
actually incredible what he can do. So it was like we have all this art, we have some game logic, and we want to like put them together in a way, and we want things to render in a way that obviously matches the original as close
Mhm.
as possible,
Yeah.
within reason. I mean, there's we could have made it exactly the same in terms of like the literal way that it draws exactly the same, but we felt like obviously with modern hardware, you're able to just very easily have just a camera. So, for example, those who've played the original piece, I guess both of them,
Mhm.
um, you don't have a mouse control, right? It's not. It's arrow keys. It's
Yeah.
like page up, page down,
Yeah.
and even
Old
then, looking
school,
up and
old
down is
school.
yeah, very old school, right? And it's cool. Like it's great, and I'm glad that the original is still playable and it still exists. So those who do want to experience that, they can. But of course, we wanted to actually use a proper camera and like
Yes.
proper, so you can actually look around with the mouse. And I think that's really good because the maps themselves in the PC one, I guess, because that's the
What you're
the
going
the
off
major
of.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, the maps themselves are actually really cool. Like they're amazing. And they have detail, quite a lot of detail looking down as well. So um being able to even just on the first level, being able to climb around the cliffs and then looking down the cliffs rather than constantly looking forward, right?
Right.
So yeah, so I just think it's just nice to see it in a new lens per se.
I like that. I
Yeah,
like
but
where
yeah, yeah,
awesome,
it's
man.
a bit of a pun there.
No, I love
But
it.
yeah, so the major focus that we had, that the lead dev, Quasar, the thing that he made very clear, which is obvious, is that we want to make sure it is just faithful, just as faithful as possible, because um, especially like from my perspective, I've seen a lot of remasters in my time, and there are some that have done pretty well, and some that are. and I'm like, well, I obviously want to be on the side of like I've
Hmm.
made a good remaster, right? So I want to be proud of this. And yeah, so I've really put my all into it. I was the one that brought up the fact that we should probably add lighting that
Yes.
wasn't in the original game.
Yes.
I added lighting, which I think looks really good.
Well, even on
It adds
the screenshots in the Discord there, it's
mm,
just like it's crazy. Like look, you can see
the
stuff through
difference.
trees. It's
Yeah.
such a world of difference.
It's a big
Um,
difference, and
yeah,
even then, we still got some tweaks to make, but it's and all it is, so each actor, um, has a setting, that's called, like, full bright, which in the old
yeah,
version, which just meant that, when it's rendered, it doesn't have any, like, shadowing applied to it, so you
right.
can see it all the way through, like
Full, yeah,
torches and stuff. But there was no actual, like, radial light. There was no point lights at all.
right.
And so all I did, yeah, was made it so when the levels load, it would go through, find the actors that were full bright, and just add point lights to a list that would then be sent to the to the GPU,
Yeah.
that would render all the lighting effects, which is just a distance-based calculation. And then, yeah, I did it in,
Cool.
like, 2 days.
That's
Um
amazing, dude.
it's pretty fun. I really love, shaders. I'm a big fan of, like, shader stuff, so, yeah, when I said, "Oh, maybe we should add point lights," and then, Quasar was like, "Yeah, sure," and I was like, "Cool."
Do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Make
yeah,
it
it was
so.
really cool.
That's
Mm,
cool, man. So now bear with me in my ignorance, but so with Albert rendering out the units, the characters with
mm.
his camera, and then do you guys have to chat about because he's baking in a little bit of light, or is he giving you like full bright stuff and then you tell the lights how to act on the characters? I know that's a little bit dialing it in, but like
No, no,
how does
that's actually
how
a good
does that
question.
work? Because to my
Mm,
understanding, the especially with like coming from a real life photo or video and
mm.
transferring those into what Albert's doing with and recreating some of those renders too, because he had to do some from scratch. Yeah, how do you guys communicate? How do you guys work together, or do you even have to?
Well, yes, there's absolutely a lot of communication, because, yeah, it is one of those things where, um if Albert, yeah, let's say he just goes, "Oh, I'm gonna have a particular lighting angle,"
Yeah, yes.
um, yeah, it would probably not look quite right.
Yeah.
So yes, there was a lot of what I did is I would take a few screenshots of this is like really early on, so
Yeah, yeah.
they didn't even have the build. Um, so I'd take a few screenshots, I would send it to them, and they would basically just copy paste they would
Oh,
edit the screenshots, and they themselves would sort of depict
right.
how it should look when they actually render out the individual sprites. So I also think, because obviously Albert's very good,
Yeah.
he did render in a way where things do have a sort of a neutral light to it, which
Gotcha.
meant that, yeah, which meant that sort of whatever direction they were facing, and no matter if there was like a point light to the left or right, and it doesn't look bad, which I think
Yeah.
is
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
good. Yeah,
Like relatively
yeah,
neutral in terms of the lighting and
yeah,
shadows and stuff. Cool. Okay.
yeah,
No, I was
and
just
that's
curious
kind of
about that.
like the only way you could sort of do it anyway. Like
Yeah.
there's yeah, so
Cool. Because like back in the day, or in the original game, that stuff's baked into the
mm,
character art, right? Like you have a
yep,
light on the actor that you're filming, and that's it. That's all you get. So
yeah,
it can look a
yeah,
little
yeah.
wonky. So I'm looking forward to seeing those lights and shading and all that stuff. So
Mm.
you have one excited customer. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, can you talk to me on anything that you like? I guess you've already given a couple cool examples, but like, is there something that you're most proud of on the game so far?
Ooh. Oh, man. Because yeah, we've done a lot, but
Or
the
maybe
work
if
that
there,
we've
yeah,
done
if
mm,
there's something that like you would like people to know that you worked on that they might not
ah,
notice in the finished project,
mm.
product.
Oh, okay. Well, other than the point light,
Yeah, the point light
the
thing is actually
lighting
really good. Like that's a really cool feature.
yeah, that one's quite noticeable, but
Yeah.
other than that, let me have a think.
Yeah, yeah. Take your time.
What have I done? I think the stuff that I'm proud of, are the smaller stuff because I like to um I'm very perfectionist when it comes to like how things present themselves.
Sure.
So for example, the main menu.
Yeah.
I have also done all of the UI for Killing Time. So or at least most of it. I mean, there's people are sort of coming in and out, but
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So the main menu on the original PC game is just like it's that sort of gold background with Tess, and then that's it. But I brought up the fact that we should probably do something special, maybe like some moving background or something. And Quasar mentioned that in the 3DO version, they actually have the little black holes in the main menu are actually
Yeah.
cut out, and there's like a purple background or something in it. And I was like, oh, okay, that sounds pretty cool. So what I did is I just got the main menu background. I just opened it up in like a sprite, and I just erased out the black parts. And then I just went in the code. I added a layer behind it.
Yep.
I whipped up a shader because one of my favorite shaders is like swirls and stuff
Okay.
and like
Okay.
cool, patterns. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna do that. So I just made a full screen sort of like purple spiral sort of swirly thing, and I just put that behind the main menu,
That's
and
cool.
and it's the first thing you see in the game, and it looks pretty good, I think.
I like
I think it
that.
looks pretty good.
I
Yeah,
like
'cause
that, man.
it's just purple, and it matches 'cause there's this theme of, like, yellow and purple, which is pretty cool. So yeah, it
Uh,
fits pretty well.
Nice. Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's pretty cool.
Mm.
I'm glad that everyone now opening up the game will note the first thing they see is
They'll
that
see the
those
purple stuff,
swirls.
be like,
Yeah,
"Ah, Seth did that."
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Um, so you said, yeah, you want to make something you're proud of and you want to
Mm,
stay faithful to the game.
mm,
What does that mean? And like with a cult classic like this, are you are you making this game for the previous audience or the new audience or yourself or all of the above? Like
mm.
what is your intention, I guess? Or
I
what's your yeah, yeah. Just
yeah,
riff on
I
that a
would
little bit.
I'd probably say, like, the knee jerk, it'd probably just be all of the above because Um, like, I totally get and that there are quite a few, really diehard fans
Yeah.
of Killing Time, which just so awesome to see. I've actually been I've actually been collecting, little comments, like, before we announced Killing Time, every
Yeah.
time that Nightdive would post something, I would collect little comments, people saying, "Oh, you guys should remake Killing Time." Anyway,
Nice.
because it's so great to see people excited for it. I obviously really want everyone to enjoy it. Like that's my the people pleaser inside of me.
Sure.
I want people who anyone who picks it up goes like, "Oh, this looks cool," or plays fun. But uh, yeah, but I think as long as I don't, as long as people uh see the game for, I guess, what it is, which is a very wacky thing, and we're trying to preserve that, I think.
Yeah.
And as long as yeah, I don't know, maybe I'm not looking for validation, but I definitely
Sure.
wanna at least wanna know that when it does come out, people are like, "Yeah, like, this is cool." Because I guess for a bit of context with why this is a bit complicated for me is
Sure.
because this is the uh, first remaster that I'm working on, right?
Yeah.
So there is a little bit like of nervousness within me of like
Yeah, that's fair.
I
Totally
do want to
fair.
make sure that I'm doing the right thing, you know. But yeah, so
Cool.
mm.
Well, I appreciate you sharing and being vulnerable about that because like it's tough. It's tough with stuff
Mm.
like this because on one hand you're damned if you do, and one hand you're damned if you don't because
Yeah,
you're always gonna have people saying, well, why did they change this and why didn't they change that?
yeah,
But at the end of the day, I would argue that you have studied the text for so long
mm.
and for such an intense period of time that and again, sort of the whole crux of this conversation is like we are doing our best and putting our best
Mm.
foot forward. And at the
Yeah,
end of the
yeah,
day, I
yeah.
would be proud of that, I think.
Mm.
Um, so,
Yeah, I think
yeah,
the biggest thing is definitely that we're all passionate about it.
yeah.
Like there's no doubt about that. And I feel like there is sometimes um yeah, when people think about like, oh, you know, who programmed this remaster,
Mhm.
think about maybe some other games. I guess maybe there is that assumption to be, oh, maybe they just got hired to do the job or
Yep,
whatever.
yep.
But and maybe that is the case, and that's fine. I can't speak for that. But I guess from my perspective, because I've come from the realm of indie games, right?
Yeah,
So it's just like I the only fuel that I've had is passion.
yeah, that's it.
And
That's where
so
that's everything is passion.
yeah,
Like,
like yeah, and that's why sometimes admittedly it is really hard when maybe some younger devs come to me and be like, "Oh, yeah, you know, I wanna follow your footsteps or I wanna do this and that."
uh-huh,
And but then I ask them like, "Well, how passionate are you? Like do you have something that do you have a burning desire to make
yeah,
something?" And they're like, "Oh," and they seem unsure about it. I'm like, "Well, that's like as tough as it is, that is like the biggest thing because
yeah,
if you aren't actually passionate about that thing, then it won't come to fruition properly."
that's
As
well
blunt as
said.
that may be.
No, that's well said. I would argue that as well. Like, you can like I too enjoy creating for the sake of creating and putting positivity in the world. And
Mm.
if you yeah, likewise, like if you're not passionate, you might as well go be a cog and get paid way better and like go do that, right? Cuz
Yeah.
like you'll have a
Yeah.
easier life, you know?
Yeah, this field is rough. Like,
Yeah.
I'm definitely not gonna, what's the term? I'm not gonna, like, make this seem better than it is or anything because
Sugarcoat it.
it is a rough space to be in, especially around this time.
Totally. Yeah.
Holy moly, the past couple years have been so rough for the game industry. Shout out to absolutely everyone
Mhm.
affected, by the way. Holy moly. Um, so yeah, there is that feeling of, okay, like I'm hired to do this and I'm passionate about this, and there are people who have loved the original game. And so when you just sort of add all those things together, it's like I have to do my best job. Like
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
no question about it. And that's why I do wake up every morning. I'm like, yeah, I'm so keen to just make the game good, you know? I just want to get it out there. Obviously, you know, there's a balance. I don't want to rush it. You know, we got to make sure we're doing things right. Like that's I have to say that. But there is also yeah that element of like yeah you got to be passionate.
Amazing. Have there been any roadblocks for you or any challenges that stick out in your mind?
Yeah. There have been some challenges. I think a lot of it is around just sort of the period in which I jumped on because I came from a previous studio,
Mhm.
and that sort of in between time was pretty rough for me. So I guess I had my own I guess barriers that I was overcoming as I was jumping on to Night Dive. But once I jumped on and once I sort of got everything balanced, things have gotten really a lot better.
Nice.
But in terms of the actual like um the process of discovering, killing time and the process of getting up to speed and everything, because I had to learn a lot,
Yeah.
right? There's an in-house engine, there's a lot of stuff. But again, you know, as long as you tell yourself like, "Yeah, like, I can learn this, it's okay," and you just keep on top of it, a lot of the time it's okay.
Nice.
'Cause I feel like and this is sort of a bit of a projection because I know that a lot of young devs feel like this. Um, it can be very overwhelming, like very often. The whole game development experience is overwhelming
Right.
because there's just so much involved, especially when there's a product at the end of the line, right, where people are going to interact. Um, so yeah, so it's super important to keep, I guess, a clear head, and I think only recently in my recent years have I gotten a lot better at that.
Nice. That's great advice. All of
Mm,
you out there, you young
mm,
guns, keep a
it's
clear
important.
head. Don't get
Yeah,
overwhelmed. Stay
yeah,
passionate. That's their
Mm,
thesis today.
mm,
This needs to be told because, like, one, I think when people see a developer and gives it a little bit of humanity to the craft,
mm.
then it's less of like the toxicity or less maybe I'm being a little too positive, but like hoping that, putting a face to a name or a project and
Yeah.
you're like,
Yeah,
"Oh,
yeah.
okay, I can kind of see where they're coming from."
Mm,
Not that that's going to
yeah.
solve all the toxic gamer problems, but
No, no.
you can
That
hope,
is an
right?
aspect though. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I find, especially these days, like I'm as so many others are, I'm constantly online,
Mhm.
constantly on social media, and I see very often just like these conversations about like there's this disconnect between what the game developers make and what the gamers almost expect or
Yeah.
what they feel might happen and yeah, I mean, yeah, it's one of those things where it only does good allowing the developers to actually speak and be
Yep.
like, "Hey, actually, we did like here's something because I've been watching so many streamers
Mhm.
play Shadow of the Erd Tree,
Yep.
the Elden Ring DLC,
Yep.
right? And the recent discussions about how it's too hard, blah blah blah. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, it would be cool to actually hear some of the devs, like one of the programmers who
Yeah.
worked on like Radan's battle or like something like that, and just hearing
Give some
some
insight. Yeah.
humanity.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Like that sort of thing, I think would be amazing. So yeah.
Yeah. I still think I know we're on such a tangent right now, but I still think like it's a such a curse that this artistic pursuit is one of the only ones where you can make an amazing thing or one just make a thing and it
Mm,
gets criticized instead of like celebrated.
mm,
It's like you made a thing. Oh, that thing is shit,
mm. Yeah, I feel like
subjectively.
there's a lot of lack of nuance sometimes. I
Mhm.
feel like there's an interesting connect between like posting stuff online or some sort of online like it's that the moment you as a person are disconnected from the thing that you're putting out there, the nuance is gone.
Yeah.
And then it's up to anyone's interpretation. And if they're having a bad day and they see that, be like, "That's shit."
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
suddenly you're going, "Well, from my perspective, like I had a lot of intent or I had reasoning, but especially something like a programmer where what they have to do is code and you can't tell the player like, oh, I want it to be this way and I like it's yeah it's this is a very interesting topic. We
Well, I don't want to monopolize the rest of your day. Is there anything that you wanted to touch on that we didn't get to, or anything that you thought we were
hmm
going to talk about that we didn't?
um I'm not sure. I mean I really love speaking about the process of the creation. I mean, I know that there's like I'm under NDA. There's obviously certain things I
Yeah, yeah,
can't
yeah.
say, but um, but there are also um, a lot of processes and a lot of steps that we've taken that have been quite interesting, and we've been able to like, for example, I don't know if Josh has mentioned this, but like Josh did a lot of what's it called, like the recovery of some of the older files and
Yeah,
things like that. And like there's a lot of really cool stuff that have happened that have gotten to this point. And we've still got a little while before the release, and I'm just excited just to get it to the end, and it's gonna be really cool.
amazing. Amazing. Cool, man.
Hmm.
Well, I really appreciate you chatting with me and yeah, just talking about killing time and your process and what's going through your head. So thank you again,
Yeah, it was
Seth,
awesome.
for coming on the show and chatting.
Thank you very much. Thank you.